First, though, at 5 o'clock, amid a crisis marked by a shortage of housing and shelter space. It's a big, empty building that no one wants to use. We're talking about Wapato Jail. It's sat empty for years, costing taxpayers millions of dollars. Recently, its owner threw up his hands, announced it was doomed for demolition, and that's where we thought it was headed, until a nonprofit enters the scene here, based on the coast, run by a man who actually was once homeless. He's determined to turn the jail now into the housing option the people who work with the homeless folks here in Portland think they really, really need. Could this now be Wapato's final saving grace? Here's KGW's Maggie Vespa.
This morning, a familiar scene covering Portland's housing crisis.
Good morning.
A press conference about the future of Wapato Jail, which recently looked bleak.
As many of you know, approximately a month ago, we had run out of options to save Wapato and had gotten ready to sign the demolition contract.
But developer Jordan Schnitzer admitted today he never stopped searching for someone to transform this embattled money pit into a shelter for Portland's homeless. Enter this guy.
My name is Alan Evans, and I am the founder and executive director of Helping Hands Reentry Outreach Centers.
Before you learn more about Evans, a history of Wapato. Back in 2004, Multnomah County officials spent $58 million building the place, but budget limitations and other issues prevented them from ever using it. So it sat empty for a long time, costing taxpayers $300,000 a year to maintain. As the area's housing crisis got worse, calls to use the North Portland jail as a shelter got louder. Officials argued it was too far from downtown and too expensive to run.
If we want to spend more and more on shelter, that could take away from money we're spending on housing programs.
This year, Schnitzer bought it for $5 million, pledging to finally turn it into a shelter or knock it down. Now, after months of searching and with encouragement from state senators Lou Frederick and Betsy Johnson,
this is a place of hope and opportunity.
Evans has stepped up.
I listened to interviews from people saying that it was too far from town, or we weren't close to a library or any of those things. And I'm here to tell you from my personal story that those were the farthest thing from my mind.
Evans there referencing his own years on the streets. A recovering addict, he's since turned his life around and founded Helping Hands, which operates shelters and recovery centers on the Oregon coast. Last year, we toured a new one in Astoria. Today, Evans announced his newest goal, to raise roughly $3 million over 60 days. That's the cost of renovating Wapato and running it for 1 year as transformative housing for the homeless.
I'll tell you, I've been in a couple prisons in my life. This is not one of them. This is a building. This is an opportunity.
All right, so Evans and Schnitzer want to call it the Bybee Lakes Hope Center, and they think it'll take about 250 people. They can house them at one time, and they also plan to have programs that help people with addiction recovery and job training and transportation, which is a big question about its location at this point.
The money it's going to take, right? They want to raise like $3 million. Where's that going to come from?
So they're hoping at this point that basically they'll have a lot of private donations. Jordan Schnitzer, again, the developer, is hoping to cover a lot of that chunk, and he's pledging to do that, but he also pledges to match a good amount of the donations that come in. They don't think public money is going to be part of the equation at this point, but they do believe down the road, when officials basically see how well this is working or how well they think it's going to work, public money could come into play because they'll want to get behind it. They believe.
Prove this is the right move, and then everything else will follow suit.
That's their hope.
All right, Maggie, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right, moving on now to an investigation by USA Today and the claims that the federal government helped remove sexual assault allegations from the record of a former Duck football player. Our news partners in Eugene spoke with one of the two women who says Tristan Wallace raped them.
At one point, I didn't think that I would continue even going to school here.
USA Today reports that Wallace was expelled for sexual misconduct after the two women reported that they were raped. But Wallace's mother filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education alleging sex discrimination. USA Today says the school and Wallace reached a deal on this to change his transcript to say he was expelled for student misconduct, not sexual misconduct.
To me, that means they didn't value the survivor's opinion. They don't value their students.
Wallace signed on to Prairie View A&M's football team before the transcript was changed. The University of Oregon is not commenting on this story. Days now after police shot and killed a man on a southeast Portland street, we're hearing from this man, the mayor, as well as the police chief, in a joint call to action. Both leaders say the mental health system needs to be fixed. KGW's Mike Benner joins us now in the newsroom to explain. Mike?
And Dan, the man shot and killed by police is named Coben Henriksen. He is no stranger to law enforcement. In fact, in August and November, he was involved in volatile situations with police. Both were resolved without violence, but a much different story this past Sunday afternoon. Henriksen was reportedly armed with a knife when he encountered officers near Mall 205. Those officers, were told, fired non-lethal and lethal rounds at Henriksen, killing the 51-year-old. Just yesterday, Police Chief Daniel Outlaw said the mental health system, as it's currently constructed, recycles individuals instead of resolving the underlying issues. Today, the mayor piggybacked on those comments, saying the mental health system failed Henriksen. I caught up with the president and CEO of Cascadia Behavioral Health Care. Generally speaking, he says the mental health system is starved. There are just too many people who need help and too little funding.
It's not a broken system. It's not a system that doesn't know how to do this. It's a system that doesn't have the resources adequate to meet this huge demand. There's no question about that.
All right, late this afternoon, Portland City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty released a statement saying the mental health system is not the only system that failed Henriksen. She's hoping we use this opportunity to work on all systems that continue to fail the most vulnerable. Dan, back to you.
Mike Benner, thank you.
23 ayes and 17 noes.
The article is agreed to.
For the third time now in U.S. history, the House of Representatives will be voting on articles of impeachment against a president. The House Judiciary Committee approved the charges against President Trump this morning. This is after 14 hours of debate yesterday that stretched late into the night. The vote was split along party lines, which is something we all knew was going to happen. Very expected. The articles accuse President Trump of abusing his power by trying to leverage Ukraine's military aid in exchange for announcing politically motivated investigations, then obstructing Congress by blocking witnesses and defying subpoenas. The president and Republicans deny he did anything wrong.
It's a scam. It's something that shouldn't be allowed, and it's a very bad thing for our country, and you're trivializing impeachment.
The president is looking ahead now to the Republican-run Senate trial, during which Majority Leader Mitch McConnell promises he'll coordinate closely with the White House. The mountains in Oregon and Washington getting a heavy dose of snow over the past couple of days. People who, are looking forward to skiing and snowboarding, they've been waiting for this. So here we go. A lot of the ski areas are now open in Oregon, but to the north, Snoqualmie Pass is still hoping for some more fresh powder.
If this keeps up, with this weather cycle being what it is, hopefully sometime in the next coming days, we'll get people on these lifts and get them up skiing and snowboarding.
The falling snow in that interview looked promising. At Mount Hood Meadows, ski season is already in full swing. As you can see, people are having a great time on the slopes now. They opened last weekend and have gotten even more snow since, which is great. Chief Meteorologist Matt Zaffino on Mount Hood at Timberline for us tonight, getting us up to speed. Everything going on out there. They lighting the tree for you out there tonight, Matt?
Yeah, we'll be doing that live, Dan, at 6 o'clock, so you'll be able to see. You can see the trees behind me all decked out. They've got these handmade gingerbread cookies that are like as big as, a foot. They're massive, and it's really tempting to always eat one of those, but not before the tree gets lit, not before Christmas. I think that would be bad karma. So we are at Timberline Lodge, the iconic lodge on Mount Hood, but did you know there's a mini Timberline Lodge about 1,000 feet up the mountain? It's called Silcock's Hut, but it's much more than a hut.
So once you're here, you're totally self-contained. You have your own food and beverage service, your own rooms, bunks, Wi-Fi. Very comfortable and very cool.
And you know what? When the Magic Mile chairlift is open, you can ski right to Silcock's Hut. Or if you don't want to do that, or if you can't do that, like today, the Magic isn't running, they snow catch you up there. It sleeps 24 people. You rent out the whole thing for your crew. And in fact, there is a wedding going on up there tonight. We've seen people running around Timberline Lodge and Silcock's getting ready for that wedding. So it is a whole lot of fun. All right, let's check out the forecast for Portland. We may get a random sprinkle tomorrow and a little fog in the morning. Otherwise, just generally cloudy, and the same thing on Sunday without the sprinkle, just generally cloudy and generally dry. There is new snow covering the mountains, though, Dan. We'll talk about when that happens a little later. Back to you.
My best to the bride and groom. That sounds like a fantastic wedding venue. That sounds like a great time. See if you can crash it. Try to crash that thing, Matt. Hey, we're hearing another person now in the area has gotten sick from vaping. This is a new case. It's the first one in Clark County. Health officials are saying it's a woman. She's in her 40s. She was hospitalized with a lung illness, and she was vaping both nicotine and THC products. And she bought them at local licensed retailers. The Center for Disease Control says more than 2,400 people have gotten sick so far, and 52 have died. The search for a new Oregon State University president is apparently over. Dr. King Alexander will replace Ed Ray, who's stepping down after 17 years. He will officially take the position on July 1st.
So we are thrilled to be a part of this institution, to be a part of the one of two land grant, sea grant, space grant, and sun grant universities. And we look forward to working with each of you to promote inclusive excellence so that everybody is impacted by what we do.
Oregon State's Board of Trustees, they approved a 5-year deal. Before this, Dr. Alexander was the president and chancellor at LSU.